Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev, where today we continue working on our Demake about vegetation versus the undead. Now, last time we returned to the usage of structs with added improvements to said struct code, and an awesome new art style in the wake of the realization that sprites were a little too heavy on the game's performance. So a switch to tiles was made, which finally left us in a state to focus on returning to mechanics. Which brings us to today's plan. We're gonna start working on the non-plant mechanics. Specifically, we'll be focusing on how to handle zombie and lawnmower behavior in the context of our tick system. Even more specifically, just how the heck we're gonna make entities that technically both do and do not exist interact with other entities that also technically both do and do not exist. Oh yeah, it's gonna be one of those episodes. So let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. First thing up was the lawnmower, which required a new sprite doodle. So a lawnmower doodle was doodled in the plant tile set. And indeed, I am aware that it does not look like much of a lawnmower. Anyway, I thought that classifying it as a plant would be the easiest way to bring lawnmowers into the game. With that doodle doodled the best it was going to be doodled, it was time to get to some coding. In the global script, I added information for the lawnmower entity, including enum and health values. I also cleaned up some unnecessary leftovers from last session. Then in the controller object, I added a loop to spawn 5 lawnmowers at the quote-unquote end of the play area. You know, where they usually spawn. And ignoring the fact that they're firing projectiles, our mowers were ready to do some mowing. But first, we were gonna need something for the mowers to mow. So a zombie sprite was doodled up next. Now, I want to explore making zombies bigger in the future, but for now I just want zombies to work, so zombies will remain the same size as our plants. It's also pretty adorable at this size, so we might keep it around for our own custom zombie type in the future. Anyway, one zombie doodle done, and it was time to return to the code. Zombie data, similar to the plant data, was added to the global script. This included enums for zombie types, health values, and their own tile set and tile layer. A constructor was also created for zombies, which for now looks eerily similar to the plants, but trust me, that'll change down the line at some point. Anyway, back to the controller, I had the tick function spawn a new zombie every tick. The zombie would spawn randomly within the bounds of the play area and move 1 space to the left with every tick. Testing showed that we were off to a terrific start, as zombies would spawn in from the right and shuffle their way to the left over time. It was exactly what we were after. And so next on the agenda was to mow these undead pixels down whenever one reaches the end of their path. In the controller's tick function, I set up a check for the mowers specifically. But then I realized we were going to need a way to trigger the mowers to move down the row. So a state variable was added to the plant structs, which will be useful for other plants down the line, so it seemed like a good idea. Then back in the tick code, I set up a check for zombies in the tile to the right of each mower. Once a zombie is detected, it would switch the mower to the next state, and to do this would require a new function. This function would loop through the list of zombie struct data, find the zombie with the same coordinates as the mower's check, and return that zombie's quote-unquote ID. That zombie would then be deleted, and the mower would continue moving to the right with each tick. This seemed brilliant, however I realized that the mowers can't use coordinates and are simply data stuck into the grid. In other words, that wasn't going to work in the way that I had anticipated and would require some reworking. So I moved the mower to its own list and constructor. Instead of working like a plant, it would work more like a zombie. So the code was updated to reflect the changes, switching from spawning mowers as plant data to their own independent data and would share the same tile set as zombies. The mower's tick code was then rewritten, which ended up basically being similar to the previous code, just with actual references that the mower could utilize. However, to make things easier, I also added another function to remove zombies within an area instead of just by ID. This way, mowers can simply delete all zombies sharing a specific cell instead of just one. This went through a few iterations, but the results were, well, almost on point. Sometimes the checks would work and other times they were just very delayed, and drawing those zombie checks for each mower to the screen showed as much. If I had to guess, something with the positions updating and the checks happening in the same frame are causing the issue. In other words, more testing is needed. Unfortunately, I had been at this one for a while because there was a lot of hypothetical thinking going on just to get this far. Again, none of these entities technically exist, so I can't rely on collisions to do the hard work for me. And so making non-existent yet technically existing entities interact can get complicated and confusing. And boy, this project has really been overworking my brain recently. Anyway, the good news is while it's still got problems, it's not entirely broken. And so hopefully next time we'll be able to figure this whole thing out. For now, that'll do it for this episode of Let's Dev, as I need to go and put my overheated brain into an ice bath or something, preferably away from any zombies. Anyway, leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already. Leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.